Okay, thank you for tuning into Stampscaping 101. I'm holding this card right here. It's a black matte cardstock, but it does pick up, the glare of the lights here that I have on my desk, over my desk. But this is another experiment on dark cardstock doing kind of a reverse imagery. In other words, stamping out my imagery in white ink as opposed to some sort of positive application with a dark pink. This is a white Colorbox pigment ink. It's the frost white color. And one of the things that I mentioned in this video is that in doing the experiment on another video, I noticed that that frost white doesn't really stamp out perfectly opaque, all right? But that serves us very well, because if it stamps out in some version of gray, I think it's like a 90% gray or something like that. Or no, not 90%, maybe like a 10% gray. Using the bleed-proof white, which is an opaque watercolor, white watercolor, it allows us to go in, and in this case I added all those little snowy types of embellishments on there, okay? Just with the paintbrush, and over the course of like 5-10 minutes, adding it to the kind of the vertical surfaces on here, out here in little scumbly portions of the tips. I say scumbling, it's like when you take a dry brush and you just kind of dab it over certain areas. But I think I got a lot of dimension out of it. I think, it looks a little bit, in person it looks kind of almost three-dimensional that way, just by adding those highlights like that. So it's just a really fun technique, and quick one too. Okay, now in staying with that Dr. Martin's bleed-proof white, what I did was I took my trusty splatter painting tool, an Oral-B used toothbrush, splatter painted some paint in there, and that's that real fine misted splatter in the background. And then what we do is we go in with the white gel pen, and I added some of these larger dots in here. And going back to that Colorbox frost white, with a cotton swab, I dry brush a little bit, dry dab I guess, some of that pigment ink over those stars. Just being careful not to add too much, otherwise it would just be a blob of thick white paint. So if you watch this video, I'll show you how to apply that and how to not get, these blobs of white paint in there. It's just a matter of just dabbing some of it off. But I don't know, this is just a fun type of look for me. And as I mentioned at the end of this video, there's all kinds of possibilities in here. I think I can add some, I don't know, metallic stars in there. Maybe wouldn't gold look really elegant in here? And when I was doing those glowing stars in there, I was thinking, I need to do another one, like some trees, and maybe do like a line in between them, like with a, I don't know, black pen or something like that, ballpoint pen, and do these little stars over it like that, or these little balls, and I can kind of create like Christmas lights or something like that hanging off of different objects. And wouldn't that be a kind of a fun and very different holiday card? So anyways, if you choose to watch this video, I hope you enjoy it. This scene, I guess you can call it a scene, this card comes out. I don't know, it's a really fast process because we're not talking about a lot of different media used on here. Pigment ink, white gel pens, and the frost white, the bleed-proof white right here. If you don't have some bleed-proof white, you can substitute with additional gel pen work. You can't get, a splatter painting technique in the background with that gel pen, but you can add those dots in there like so. So anyways, hope you enjoy it. Thanks again for tuning in. And as always, if you have any questions, just drop us a note in the comment section. Okay, we're going to do a little experiment here using some black cardstock. This happens to be a folding card, a pre-creased folding card that I found at Kelly Paper. It's called Personal Touch. This is a matte card. I was going to say cardstock. I don't know if this is cardstock. It says unique twin wire antique vellum finish, inkjet laser compatible. It's an 80-pound cover weight. And anyways, these are 5x7. It's 5x7 when it's folded like that for its intended purpose. All right, but anyways, we're going to do a little bit of an experiment with this. I played around with some black cardstock and just various darker papers, some, in the last 20 videos or so. And one of the things that I found on one of them was that when I stamped out my object in kind of a Colorbox white pigment ink, this one happens to be the frost white, it stamped out kind of less than opaque. It was more of like a 80 or 90% gray. But I thought we can use that. I mean, I did it with the symmetry butterfly image, and I thought that it looked really interesting when I accented the stamped image with some of the Dr. Martens bleed proof white. I like that look. Dr. Martens bleed proof white is it's an opaque watercolor. A lot of calligraphers use it. They'll mix it up and put it in their pens, their dip pens and whatnot. But I thought we would do kind of a wintry looking card. I'm trying to think of how I want to do this. Do I want to make it landscape like that? Or do I want to go this way? Let's try this way. All right. All right. Fairly large area to this stamp. It doesn't have a lot of surface area because it's more spindly, But I do stand up when I'm stamping my larger stamps just to get a little bit more leverage. Okay, something like that. I don't do it too often, but I really like reverse things, reverse text, light objects on dark. Not for everything, but for quite a few things, though, that I do. They're reversed, like my text on the YouTube channel thumbnails, and on the website I have a kind of a black background. I don't know. It's kind of fun. We did that back in 1996 and just never changed it, so it's really been quite some time doing that reverse idea. Light colored text, with the hyperlinks and whatnot. I don't know, sometimes it makes the presentation of different imagery, I think, a little bit more dramatic. It's not really neutral, to present like artwork on, like in a classroom situation we used to use like a neutral gray, or like on photographs as well. But I don't know. I used to be into contrast a lot. I still am, but a lot more than I am now. All right, so we have that. 2 impressions. Oh, by the way, with the spooky branch stamp, doesn't it look cool like that? And I changed the angle from one impression to the next. Okay, now here's what I'm going to do. Because that's stamped in less than 100%, it would look good too is if you emboss it. But I'm not going to do that here. That'll have to be for another time. I know when I started playing around with embossing, I'm probably never going to stop. But that would look cool too. All right, now this is a number 2 brush. It doesn't have to be that specific. It's just, you know, kind of a good small brush. I just happen to have that. I didn't go out and buy it for this purpose. We don't want to go with like a number like 12 like this, okay, for doing this type of detailed work. And when I say detailed, it's detailed, but it's not precarious, all right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this into kind of like a holiday-looking card or whatever. So what I'm going to do is, or I could say it's a seasonal card. I'm going to pretend like this is a dormant branch, and it's dormant during winter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and apply some what I hope looks like snowfall on the forms. And I'll do it with some of this bleed-proof white. All right? So if the snow is falling from above, then on the branches that are a little bit more horizontal, I'll start applying some of this idea or representation of snow. It kind of looks weird, doesn't it, when it's in one area, but if we keep applying some of this and stay fairly consistent, in other words, like what I'm looking for is I'm looking for the branches that are more horizontal, because, you know, a vertical branch, you know, the snow would fall right off, but, you know, if something's on the side, it's, you know, snow can build up on those areas a little bit more. And like right here, you know, it's a larger branch, so in theory it can hold more snow. Okay? So we'll see how this goes. You can also do this with like a white gel pen too. So it's like looking for the opportunities here. Where can I put some of the snowfall? Like I said, when you apply it in one area, it looks kind of weird. That's why I'm not doing it on just like one part of one branch. I'm kind of applying it wherever I see those horizontals, sorry. Okay. So that it's kind of more consistent, okay? We have a nice big branch down here. Put some of that snow there. I'm trying to keep it from looking like just a straight line as well. I'm kind of clumping it up in some areas, which makes it even easier because you don't have to be, you know, very careful about it at all. But just kind of keep your, I don't know, kind of keep the look somewhat consistent. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of adding some here, and then I'll go over here, just because, I don't know, I have a feeling that as I do this, I might start changing kind of my mark, the marks that I'm making, just because I haven't done a lot of this type of thing before. So I'm kind of just coming up with the look of it on the fly. So you're seeing my experiments on, when you watch these videos. I know that's kind of the way I see all of my scenes, as I think I've mentioned before. I look at them as experiments. So I'm never worried about anything, like, something that just doesn't come out looking, what I think is very, good. As long as you kind of learn something with whatever you're doing, it's, as they say, it's all good. But yeah, I'm just like anyone else. I want it to look good. I just don't kind of place a value on the kind of the end result as much as the process and what you get from something. All right, so I've mentioned it before on scratchboard videos, stampboard videos. But there's something to kind of adding these light on dark reverse marks. I have a feeling that we might be using a different part of our brain when we do that. I don't know, like a different hemisphere or just a different area, because it's really quite relaxing, kind of adding these little things in here. It's like if I'm adding like gel pen highlights or something like that, or at least little kind of dots. I don't know, it feels different. I don't know if we're kind of looking for something else, or if we're kind of using more of our, maybe our right brain, I would guess it would be, in terms of a hemisphere with this type of thing. Alright, so kind of building it up. It looks a little bit more dimensional that way, doesn't it? I think it looks quite elegant, too. It's like gray. It's like variations of gray in many ways. Not the white, but kind of where it has been applied. Okay. I just kind of want to highlight that side of the branch a little bit. I don't know, just to give a little bit of a variation again. It almost, as I'm doing this, I have a tendency of thinking that it really, as long as you have kind of that same texture in different areas, I'm finding that it really doesn't matter where you put this. I think it all looks pretty good. It just has to be in enough areas so it doesn't look kind of out of place, like I'm doing that little stippling, that little dot area, but it just has to be kind of done in more than one area, and I think it looks pretty good. Okay. Here we go. Look how dimensional that is. It's like an, I don't know what it looks like. Looks like an X, not an X-ray, but I don't know. Let's not, maybe don't analyze it too much. Just, I just like it. All right. That was fun. White on gray is a lot of fun, I find. All right, let's see about something. I'm thinking about adding a little bit of texture to the scene in the form of kind of a splatter painting touch. All right, getting some of my paint on my trusty splatter painting tool here. The trick is getting kind of a good amount of it, not too much. You know, you can have kind of too little and it's okay, but you just don't want to have too much of it. All right. And you don't want to have too much of it because you don't want to have a gigantic blob come out. It's good to have some variation. You could have a couple blobs, but I don't know if you want like a ton of it. All right. Kind of get a feel for what it's going to look like as you apply that. Okay. It's hard to tell which way it's going. Can't tell if it's splattering out that way or if it's splattering this way. But no matter. Okay, I won't put too much of it. Let's just go with something like that. See, it's just a little bit of texture added to it. Okay. I don't have any, I'm out of paper towel, so I'm just going to wipe that off with my thumb, like so. All right, now let's stay with that spirit of texture. Let's say that these stars are, or this card. I'm trying to find a place to hold this. This paint is kind of dry on here already, I'm sure, but just being careful not to smear. Then let me add in a few extra stars here, and I'm just using my white gel pen. When I'm adding stars, I always kind of have to force myself to keep it random. A lot of times when we do something like this, we tend to like space everything out perfectly. So there's, you know, all the stars are like 1/2 inch across, you know, away from each other. So sometimes what I do is I kind of cluster it. I'll do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Just kind of spread it out a little bit. If you want a little bit of variation, you can kind of add a larger one, and I just do that by drawing it like that. Okay, so we have something like this, or we have this now. Let's add another couple large ones out here. Okay. It's kind of fun. Now let's add a little bit more texture to this. And we'll do it with pigment ink. Okay? Now with pigment ink, if you watched other videos, I've mentioned to not apply too much. Keep it in kind of a dry brush application. This is just their regular everyday cotton swab. And it's the real cotton one. But on some of these brighter, larger stars, put a little bit of a glowing, what would you call it, atmosphere around it. Suddenly you have a glowing star, right? And can you see the importance of the kind of the dry brush application of this? If you have too much on there, it's just going to leave a big blob of paint. All right. So let me show you. Let's look at that star right there. One tap, I can't see anything. Okay, nothing transferred. Okay, that's 30 taps right there to create that kind of glow. Now that's, you know, I mean, it doesn't take that long to do that. If you have to do it 30 times each time, you know, we're just talking a few seconds. But that's better than trying to expedite it by having a big blob of paint on there. And plus, it's not going to give you what you want if you're going for that look. So just take off, you know, a lot of the paint. Don't apply too much. And see, we have these little glowing lights in there. And I really like that look. It's just, it's fun. Plus it's an opportunity in stamping to have a softer element within a field of crisp marks. You know, we have crisp impressions when we're stamping something out most of the time. I say most of the time. Sometimes I wipe off some of my imagery so that it stamps out lighter and looks a little bit softer. But for the most part, you're stamping crisp images, and then, you know, you're applying things with pens and whatnot, and you don't have this kind of diffused type of element most of the time. So from a textural standpoint, you're really kind of increasing the textural range of your scene, and it could be just with a very small little twinkling element. In this case, it's a little bit of a glowing star. Don't forget some of the stars amongst the branches, you know. This gives me an idea. I could have stamped out these branches down here, okay, and had some stars up there. But if I put some, I'll do this in another scene, but I should do like a string like here. I should draw like a black string and put some of these dots right on that line and have this, you know, some kind of branches strung with, you know, holiday lights. Wouldn't that be cool? Alright. So you do these types of experiments like that, and other things come to mind. So as soon as you figure out one thing, or a technique or whatever, other things, you know, it's like, you know, if you like the look, it suddenly spawns the ideas for, you know, other pieces. That's the thing with this YouTube channel here. I thought I would be able to kind of go over in 10 videos, you know, most of the things I would want to say, but I don't know, the more you do, it just kind of opens up more avenues, you know, so it's kind of never ending in terms of, you know, kind of the things that I want to kind of play around with and experiment with. Which is not a bad thing. Alright, so here we have it. Kind of those little glowing lights. Those little glowing lights really add to it, don't they? And see, here's a little bit of that texture in there from the splatter painting technique. And you hold it back at arm's distance. You know, it's not as, there's a little bit of a glare there, but when I hold it like this, boy, that sure does look, those branches sure do look dimensional that way, don't they? Super easy card to do, too. I mean, we're talking about, you know, you can use black cardstock, and you can use any dark cardstock would look good. I mean, can you imagine this in green or purple, or like a, you know, an iridescent paper would look kind of cool too. It might look okay on silver. I don't know if it would show up, you know, or a metallic like that, but perhaps like a, like I said, like a darker iridescent, like a Star Dream paper might look cool. Blue would look really good, like a dark navy blue. Alright, endless possibilities. Oops. So, branches, starlit branches, something like that, maybe. Alright, anyways, that was a fun little experiment there, and like I said, it opens up the possibilities here for other types of scenes done in kind of that same spirit. So kind of moving along, learning a little bit more about this kind of reverse out mark. Down here I was a lot more bold with my use of the paint. You can see it just kind of blobbed up in some of these areas, okay? You can kind of just do whatever you want, but leave some of the impression behind too, I think, you know. Don't just cover up everything with that white paint if you're doing it. And if you don't have that Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White, which I'd recommend picking up a bottle at some point in time, you can also use just a white gel pen, you know, to do those types of marks on there. It won't build up as much, I don't think, as the watercolor paint, that Bleed Proof White, but you can get some marks on there and for that same type of effect. And there's a lot of control over this too. You know, in terms of adding it down on your imagery and cards. So, hope you enjoyed it. I certainly had fun, and yeah, more things to be added later. God, I'm thinking of all kinds of things too, like some gold little flourishes on here would be cool too, or gold stars in the background. The possibilities are endless. We'll save that for another scene. Okay, thanks for watching.